Welcome to WrestleRecap. I am Dylan Graves, joined again by John Sutton, as we are going to talk about the WWE Draft. We are now 1 month removed from when it took place, so we're going to kind of just go over who got drafted. We're going to look back at the list that I did prior to the draft and just kind of compare, talk about things, and see how we feel. But if you want to support WrestleRecap, you can like, share, and subscribe. You can comment down below. Let us know how we're doing. But with all that said, let's get into it. Okay, so leading into the draft, I did the video of 20 stars that could be on the move to improve in the 2024 draft. I only got 3 of those correct.
You suck.
Well, to be fair, I expected the draft to have more substance to it than what it was.
It was just a thing.
Yeah, for as big of a deal as they made about it, I wasn't expecting them to basically just go out there and read their rosters. Like, there was very little movement.
Yeah, but
So when I make a list of 20 people expecting all 20 of them to move, and I would be surprised if 20 people moved total, that's gonna cause a low hit rate. Like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 picks were picks that caused movement. And I had predicted 20 people or 20 picks to cause movement. So, yeah.
so basically every pick you were thinking someone was not going to stay on the same
Well, no, there were more than
roster.
there were way more than 20 picks. But I was expecting there to be more people or more movement than what there was, and I guess some of the movement that there was didn't hold that much of weight. I was expecting some shock value, which there just really wasn't much.
No.
But so in that video, I had predicted the 3 hits that I got were I had predicted Ilya Dragunov to get drafted. I believe I even predicted Raw. I predicted Carmelo Hayes to get drafted, and I think I even predicted SmackDown for that one. And Baron Corbin I predicted, but I predicted he would land. I guess I did predict he would land on SmackDown because I figured they would pair him with Braun Breaker to reform the Wolf Dogs to give Braun Breaker something to do rather than just keep doing squash matches. However, they then moved Braun Breaker over to Raw in the draft. So
to keep
that
doing
plan,
squash matches.
Yeah, to keep doing squash matches. But so that theory did not come to fruition.
I don't remember seeing much of Baron Corbin anyways, besides a few times since he's been drafted.
He had the match against Carmelo Hayes.
Yeah, but that's about it, though. They're not really... I get there's a lot of people that, deserve the spotlight. It's just not really doing anything with him, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, deep rosters, like, people get lost in the shuffle. When he moved up, the only thing that he was really working with down in NXT was the Wolf Dogs. So when he moves up and that's not a thing anymore, it was just kind of weird to move him up but not keep the Wolf Dogs going.
And that was a hot tag too. Like
They were, yeah.
killing it.
They went undefeated until they lost the titles. Like, that was their only loss as a tag team.
And they lost it to Axiom and I can't remember
Nathan
his partner's
Frazier.
name. Yeah.
Yeah. Nathan Frazier is actually a Seth Rollins protege.
It's crazy to think that, it doesn't seem that long ago that Seth Rollins debuted in WWE and now he's got proteges.
Yeah, I think he had the school though before he was in WWE.
Oh.
Maybe not though. Because
either way,
I think
it kind of makes me feel old.
Yeah. I think the school's name is it Black and Brave?
Seth freaking Rollins School of Awesomeness.
That's definitely not it. Yeah, Black and Brave Wrestling Academy in Davenport, Iowa.
Let's go.
That is Seth Rollins. Well, Colby, what? I don't even know what his last name is. I can't remember. Colby something is his real name.
I just look it up on Google.
That's what I'm doing.
I'm gonna get it first. Colby Daniel Lopez.
Yeah, Colby Lopez. That's what it is. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, so the other 17 picks that I had suggested, first one for the misses was my third suggestion. So my first two were the Ilya and Carmelo Hayes because those were already reportedly locks. So those were just like cheese picks, ones that were almost guaranteed. And then Baron Corbin was my fourth one. So the one that came in third was Roxanne Perez. I figured she was getting moved up, seeing as she fought on the same episode of Raw that Ilya did, that being the Raw After Mania. It seems kind of... What's the word I'm looking for? Evident? No, I don't think it's evident. Basically, it seems like she's going to be on the main roster at some point, probably within this year. But they put the title back on her to move Lyra up first, I guess. I don't know. But
just a bunch of question marks.
Yeah, I mean, putting the title on, I guess when they said that champions couldn't be drafted from NXT and or from anywhere, that champions were locked, then there was still, before the draft, there was the triple threat for the NXT Women's Championship between Roxanne Perez, Lyra Valkyria, and Tatum Paxley. A lot of people assumed that Tatum Paxley was going to pull off an upset win to become champion so that Roxanne and Lyra could be eligible to be drafted and probably move up. However, Roxanne Perez won the title and therefore was ineligible to be drafted, which they turned into a storyline with her being pissed off that she didn't get drafted and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, obviously I had predicted her to move up to the main roster. That didn't happen. As for call downs, for lack of a better term, I figured that Final Testament was going to move down to NXT because they've been staples on NXT since the draft. So I don't know why they didn't just move down to NXT.
And they're not... No one wants to see them on the roster. Kind of boring.
Yeah, they're generic. I predicted the Good Brothers to move down to NXT permanently because, again, they've basically been a fixture on NXT since the draft. outside of appearing on SmackDown for AJ Styles' fake retirement speech.
Yeah.
I predicted Cameron Grimes to get moved back down to NXT to reinvent himself, but instead he just got released.
R.I.P.
Yeah. I predicted Apollo Crews to get moved down to NXT, and he did not. I predicted Cedric Alexander to move down to NXT, and he did not. I'm not going to keep saying he or she did not or they did not, because that's all. None of these came to fruition. I predicted Dexter Lumis to go back to NXT. As I've stated multiple times, his character just doesn't fit on the main roster. However, now he's going to be part of the Wyatt Six, so I can understand not moving him down. And the last one that I predicted to move down was Natalya, as it seemed like she was going to be working more on NXT, and she has been, but apparently that's not going to stay as like her permanent home. Then for call-ups, the only call-up that I predicted that didn't happen was I predicted the D'Angelo family to get called up, because there were heavy rumors at the time that they were going to get called up to SmackDown. Rumors are still kind of going around that they're supposed to be getting called up, but those have more so started to diminish as of late, with the return of Gallus on NXT and the Clash at the Castle being in Scotland, Gallus all being Scotland boys. It is rumored that due to their work and training with The Rock to get him ready, that he impressed The Rock enough that they're supposed to be getting a main roster call-up, possibly to form a Scottish faction with none other than the Scottish Warrior, Drew McIntyre.
Drew McIntyre!
Which could happen as early as Clash at the Castle. Aside from call-ups and call-downs, again, for lack of a better term, I had predicted, looks like 7 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7 people / teams to move from one brand to the other. I figured Jimmy Uso would get drafted over to Raw after his exodus from the Bloodline, and then that would allow them to set up his reunion with Jay. However, Jimmy just never got drafted due to injury, but we still drafted other people that were injured.
Yep.
So, granted, Braun Strowman returned from injury, like, right after. Something like that.
So did Sheamus.
But, well, Sheamus had just returned from injury.
I thought he was...
No, because they called him back early. He said he was aiming to return for the draft, and they called him back early. Hence the burger after burger look.
Burgers.
But they didn't really establish any rules pertaining to who could become or who could be eligible versus not eligible, and then kind of just went against the unwritten rules of not drafting injured people. But nevertheless, that kind of works with my next person, who I predicted Braun Strowman to be sent over to SmackDown. Mainly because it felt like SmackDown is the spiritual home for the Wyatt Six, due to Bray Wyatt being champion on SmackDown. I believe that's where he was Universal Champion.
I'm pretty sure he was champion on Raw as well.
I'm looking it up quick. He was one-time WWE champion, two-time Universal champion, one-time SmackDown tag champion, one-time Raw tag champion. I don't know, when I think of Bray Wyatt, I just think of him being on SmackDown. So that was more or less why I predicted Braun Strowman would move over to SmackDown to then be lined up for the Wyatt Six to debut as a SmackDown faction.
That's if they ever debut.
Well, they're gonna debut. It's just...
Wasn't there a guy a long time ago? Vignettes or whatever. And then when it came to his debut, he never debuted because they let him go or something like that.
Yeah, there's been a few cases where they did vignettes for people to debut who just never did. I mean, most recently, they talked up Gable Steveson to be the next Kurt Angle. And then I think he wrestled 2 matches in NXT and is now signed to the Buffalo Bills, where according to why can't I think of his name? Cameron Grimes, but I can't think of his... Trevor Lee, that's his name. Someone mentioned, or someone tweeted, what position is Gable Steveson going to play for the Bills? And Trevor Lee responded with something along the lines of whichever position will allow someone else to carry and make him look good.
I heard it on the radio a couple of days ago when it was announced. It sounds like he's going to be playing linebacker.
I would have predicted defensive end, but okay. I guess. Anyway, I also predicted Dom Mysterio to get drafted to SmackDown, thus ripping him from the Judgment Day and allowing him to be set into position to become a part of Legado del Fantasma, to then go against the LWO. But as we know, LWO got drafted to Raw, and Dom stayed on Raw. I figured that LA Knight would get drafted to Raw, as well as Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns. And none of those obviously have happened. I figured LA Knight and Kevin Owens would go to Raw just to give the World Heavyweight Championship picture some more stars to fight over it. Like more established stars, I should say. And I figured Roman would go to Raw to be separated from the rest of the bloodline to then feed into forming the new bloodline.
Which, as we know, he was never drafted.
Correct. And lastly, I predicted Imperium to go over to SmackDown to then be a force on SmackDown, where Gunther could go on to become world champion. But instead, he's just going to do that on Raw. So it's still a win. Also, my prediction included Giovanni Vinci, who was not part of Imperium anymore and got drafted separately to SmackDown. Meanwhile, Carlito, who was no longer part of LWO, still got drafted to Raw with the LWO. So again, they're just breaking their unwritten rules. But anyway, we're going to go through the draft picks and kind of give initial reaction and reaction to now that it's been a month, as this is a 1 month later kind of look back. The first round of the draft saw SmackDown get Bianca Belair with the first overall pick. Raw took Jey Uso at number 2. SmackDown took Carmelo Hayes with number 3. And Raw took Seth Rollins. The only change was Carmelo Hayes being called up from NXT. And Seth Rollins was hurt. So, with the first round, I'm not surprised about Bianca Belair being picked first. She's an incredible talent, no matter which show she's on. What I am surprised about is that they didn't push the Bloodline to be picked first. However, obviously we had the Paul Heyman saying that Roman Reigns wasn't part of the draft and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, yeah, that lowered their value. But, I don't know. I think Bianca getting picked first did catch me by surprise. But now a month later, it makes more sense with the directions that they've gone since. Jey Uso being Raw's first pick. I mean, sure. Not who I would have.
What?
Yeah. I definitely would not have taken, like, Jey Uso would be nowhere near my number 1 pick spot on a draft board. No offense to him, but
not even a third round to me.
Just kind of looking at names. Yeah, I mean, it's wild that he went in the first round. But I guess when you consider who was eligible, I mean, I would have taken LA Knight over Jey Uso. I would have taken Seth Rollins.
Taken AJ Styles.
Yeah.
Braun Breaker would have been a better choice.
They wouldn't. Here's why they wouldn't do Braun Breaker in the first round. Because they were doing Carmelo Hayes in the first round. They wouldn't want to combine those two in the same round. Each round had to have its own, like, shock value pick. So obviously for this round, it was Carmelo Hayes. Seth Rollins being a first round pick, that's a no-brainer. Despite the fact that he was hurt, I absolutely agree with picking him in the first round. The only downside to that is then they go against that rule that they can pick hurt people by making Jimmy Uso not able to be picked, Alexa Bliss not able to be picked, so on and so forth.
But then Roman Reigns doesn't get picked even though he's not hurt. He's just taking time off.
Roman Reigns or I should say Paul Heyman just withdraws Roman Reigns from the draft altogether. Not sure how that works.
Which kind of saves him in that aspect, but yeah.
Oh,
I don't understand how you can withdraw somebody from a draft when they are technically declared in the draft after being a part of the main roster.
Right. But I mean, it fed into the storyline, so I mean, sure, it worked for them. But if they're going to try and make it this kind of a spectacle every single year, they need to at least establish some rules as to conduct. Like, are injured players or superstars eligible to be drafted? Are NXT superstars only eligible to come up to the main roster, and NXT doesn't get to draft anybody or like make any like save picks? Like they talked it up for NXT to be such a big part of the draft that they even had Ava talking about how Raw and SmackDown had some stars that she might be interested in. But then that's not how it worked.
And then they're like, actually, no.
Yeah, actually, we're just going to take from NXT. NXT gets nothing. We'll just send people down there after drafting them to work on your show instead. Like,
yeah.
They need to establish rules and make the rules known and then follow the rules instead of it just being the Wild West. God, we keep going off on all these random tangents. Round 2 saw SmackDown take Randy Orton. Raw took Braun Breaker, stealing him away from SmackDown, even though on my notes I wrote that he got stolen away from Raw. Not sure what I was thinking there. Drafted 2 Raw from Raw. Yeah, that makes sense. Granted, that was like all of the other picks. But Nia Jax got drafted to SmackDown from Raw, to which I also wrote in my notes that she got drafted from SmackDown. So I was just on one when I was doing this, apparently. And then Liv Morgan.
They may not switch in real life, but I'm going to make them switch.
Yeah, I'm going to make it sound like they're switching. And then with the final pick of the second round, Liv Morgan stays on Raw. Braun Breaker getting moved over to Raw, or drafted by Raw, completely made the whole contract signing thing, where he was going to pick to go, irrelevant.
Useless.
Yeah. As Nick Aldis, you go through all that work to pick Braun Breaker, and then you don't make him, or you go through all that work to sign Braun Breaker, and then you don't pick him in the first round. And
Not only that, but you don't put it in his contract clause that he can't be drafted after signing.
Well, yeah, or that. Someone who just signed a contract can't be drafted. I don't know. It was wild. I mean, I would have personally rather Braun Breaker goes in the first round instead of Carmelo Hayes. Because
I just think he's going to be a bigger star.
I think he is too. I mean, I will say that, and I'll say it again when we record the recap, but Carmelo Hayes screwing up his line against LA Knight, he's lucky that he who shall not be named isn't the one still in charge, or he would already be relegated to jobber status of getting squashed on main event.
He would have been like, actually, you know what? We're just going to...
But yeah, I don't know. I would have went Braun Breaker over Carmelo Hayes, especially after all the on-screen work that Nick Aldis did to acquire Braun Breaker. It was just kind of pointless in the end.
All the rest of the picks in the second round make sense, though. Randy Orton's just a big
sure,
box office draw, and Nia Jax is on her way to being a title contender. Liv Morgan has her title.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the other 3 picks as well. I agree with the Braun Breaker pick. I just think that SmackDown, he should have ended up staying on SmackDown for, they should have had Nick Aldis do what he could to get Braun Breaker back again, seeing as he had just went through all the work to sign him. But yeah,
Didn't
I
they
agree.
say trades could happen too?
Yeah, and nothing has came about.
Nope. So that was pointless as well.
Well, I mean, they might decide to bring that back up in 6 months. But yeah, I agree with Nia Jax going to SmackDown because she's probably going to defeat Bayley at SummerSlam. They clearly have no interest in doing anything with Bayley as a champion other than just all of a sudden, we have a pay-per-view in someone's home country. That's who your next opponent's going to be. No real build. Just, here, have a tag team match. Yeah. So, I think Nia Jax dethrones Bayley at SummerSlam. I don't think Piper Niven dethrones her at Clash at the Castle. They've not built Piper Niven up enough to put the title on her. They've barely built her up enough to be the challenger. If it wasn't in Scotland, Piper Niven would be nowhere near the title match.
I was going to say, I don't... Even earlier weeks, she's not really been a part of the show, so...
Yeah.
Just wouldn't make sense.
And then Liv Morgan, as you said, she is already now the champion. That picking her, locking her in made sense. Getting into the third round to try and keep this moving along. All picks that were essentially just we're locking these people into our brand to keep them. LA Knight stayed on SmackDown. Ricochet stayed on Raw. The Bloodline, consisting of Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Paul Heyman, stayed on SmackDown.
Before Tonga Loa.
Correct. And Sheamus stayed on Raw. Again, I personally agree with all of these. Even their placement, to be honest. Like,
I think LA Knight should just be one of the faces of SmackDown.
yeah, unfortunately, he's got Cody Rhodes on the same show.
I know, but eventually Cody will lose. I mean, LA Knight's going to get the mid-card title at some point.
Well, yeah, he's hopefully going to be the one to dethrone Logan Paul at SummerSlam.
Yep. So then he'll be one of the faces, though. It's not it's nothing to scoff at.
Right. Moving on to the fourth round of day one still. AJ Styles and Alpha Academy, consisting of Chad Gable, Akira Tozawa, Otis, and Maxine Dupree.
What a hottie.
Both remained on their rosters.
I was talking about Otis, not anyone else.
SmackDown then drafted Andrade, who had returned to Raw, and Raw drafted Kiana James from NXT because clearly Adam Pearce just wants someone to do stuff with in his office.
Yeah.
You can take that implication for whatever you choose.
And completely forget about Andrade being there and needing matches.
Well, I mean, Andrade just faced Apollo Crews.
Yeah, but remember for how long he was just not around and they were doing vignettes for him? Like,
yeah.
He's already wrestled. He was a part of a match.
It was weird to have them do vignettes after he's already returned. But, I mean, they did it for both shows, kind of like... It's weird to try and create the illusion that people don't watch both shows, but that's what they were doing.
Kind of like their own little worlds, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're trying to make it seem like.
That wrapped up. There was only 4 rounds for day one, as it was done on SmackDown. 2-hour show. Gotta meet the time requirements. But there were some social media pics that happened after the fact. Those being that Cedric Alexander and Ashante Adonis stay on SmackDown. Ivar stays on Raw. Why are we not just drafting all of the Viking Raiders? If we're drafting Seth Rollins, who's hurt, Eric should be drafted along with Ivar as the Viking Raiders, and with Valhalla, to stay on Raw. They're breaking their unwritten rules again. It's frustrating.
They're just showing you they can.
Yeah. They can do what they want, but nobody takes this seriously. Not when you don't do it with a formal, like a truly formatted way that makes sense.
I don't even think the rest, like Valhalla and Eric, were even drafted.
No, they weren't.
So are they just floaters then when they return?
Eric is hurt, and Valhalla is the wife of Eric, IRL. She might be. I don't remember. She was Ivar's manager for a while with Eric being out, but yeah, now she's off TV, so maybe she's pregnant. I don't know. I think they got married recently. I could be wrong on that. I might be thinking of someone else. But yeah, I don't know. It's just frustrating when they do stuff like this. The OC stays on SmackDown, that being Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, and Michin. Still don't know why we're calling her Michin instead of Mia Yim. Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark got drafted as a pair to Raw. If we're going to draft...
I just looked it up. Sorry, I had to look it up. They were expecting their second child as of the end of April. So she's probably on maternity leave.
Probably, yeah. So we're drafting Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark together, but we can't give them a Tron together. Really? Multi-billion-dollar company can't afford to give them a Tron for their team that is now the number one contenders for the women's tag team championships. Like they could at least
not.
They could at least create the illusion that they care about the women's tag division. But they can't even be bothered to create the illusion that they care.
Bruh, the women's tag division is fighting on the pre-shows of all the PLEs.
Exactly. Like I said, they could at least pretend or like create the illusion that they care. But instead, they can't even be bothered to create an illusion for us. They can't even be bothered to pretend to care. They're just blatantly showing us that they don't care. Anyway, there's going to be a lot of ranting in this episode. Baron Corbin gets drafted to SmackDown from NXT. Dumb. Should have been drafted wherever Braun Breaker was, which Braun Breaker should have been drafted to SmackDown, which would make this working, and then they can be the Wolf Dogs and give Braun Breaker something to do other than just pointless squash matches. And the Unholy Union...
Tozawa.
Yeah, he's eventually going to get cut in half.
And not by a magician.
No. And then the Unholy Union got drafted away from SmackDown to Raw, that being Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. Not much to say there, other than Nick Aldis probably a little upset about losing Isla Dawn, seeing as it was pretty evident that he liked looking at her tits. Got caught on national television.
Bro, Dawn just got caught looking at Liv's ass. Whether that was a storyline or not, who the hell cares?
Moving on to night 2 of the draft. Imperium, that being Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser, taking the first overall pick of night 2. 110% agree with that pick.
Yeah.
I am a huge Gunther fan. Have been since NXT UK. Jade Cargill was the second overall pick. Again, makes sense.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, we're finally doing something that makes sense, guys. Damage Control, consisting of Dakota Kai, Io Sky, Asuka, and Kairi Sane, got drafted to Raw from SmackDown. That works. Raw had basically no women for their tag division at the time, other than, I think, the Unholy Union, who had just been drafted. So there wasn't a whole lot going on over there. Moving Damage Control instantly ignites the tag team, the women's tag team division. However, it seems like they're just going to break them up. So, rip. And then Kevin Owens stays on SmackDown to round out the first round. Wrap up the first round. There. I don't like round being said twice in one sentence like that. It's kind of weird. Kicking off round 2, Raw picks CM Punk to stay. 100% agree with that. Get him locked down as soon as you can. The Pride gets taken by SmackDown to remain on SmackDown, that being the Street Profits, B-Fab, and Bobby Lashley. This is the first pick of day 2 that I would probably move. If we're looking for a faction to be picked, why would you not take the Judgment Day here? Like, from looking at it from the perspective of we are supposed to believe that these general managers are trying to snatch up as much star power as they can to be the better of the two shows, even though Raw gets an extra hour. Why would you pick the Pride, who, aside from Bobby Lashley having a run at the top, and the Street Profits essentially being booked to just lose most of their important matches, why would you pick them over the Judgment Day, when with the Judgment Day you'd get Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, and JD McDonough at this point, because Damian Priest couldn't be moved, which, not being able to draft champions, stupid. Make them waste their first picks to keep championships. Make it feel important.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would have picked Judgment Day here. But they had storylines to work with, or storylines to run. So I guess my opinion, obviously, it's not my say. Braun Strowman goes at number 7, and Tiffany Stratton goes at number 8. Picking Braun Strowman at number 7 was the shock factor pick here. Disagree entirely with having him be picked this early.
Over Drew McIntyre?
For sure.
Or even Ilya Dragunov?
Yeah.
I think I would put Ilya over him right now.
The problem with that is too many people don't watch NXT. So it's hard enough to get these NXT stars over on the main roster when they just appear, and people haven't watched NXT, so they don't know the history. So now we have to tell them the history. Drafting Ilya I think Ilya got drafted in a good spot, being in round 4. I don't disagree with that. I would have went with Drew McIntyre here, like you said. Yeah, I don't see anybody else on my lists that I would have put in this place other than Drew McIntyre. Braun Strowman.
There's nothing else really.
Yeah. I mean, you take away the fact that Braun Strowman is just a massive human being, there's really not much there. So, I don't know. But Tiffany Stratton going in the second round, I absolutely agree with. I think very soon it's going to be Tiffy time.
It's finally going to be Tiffy time.
Yep. I mean, Nia's going to win. I'm confident that Nia's going to win at SummerSlam. I'm also confident that Tiffany Stratton is going to win Money in the Bank and probably end up cashing in on Nia Jax just to complete, just the freak out. Well, the freak out that Nia would have if she wins the title from Bayley at SummerSlam and then immediately Tiffany Stratton cashes in on her.
So you're saying turning Tiffany face then for that? Because they're going to keep Nia.
Oh, absolutely. Tiffany can be the situational babyface. They had Damian Priest become the situational babyface to cash in on Drew right after he beat Seth Rollins at Mania. Tiffany Stratton can absolutely cash in on Nia. And I feel like that is the route. They don't typically give the women a long run with the briefcase. In fact, most women, I believe, actually, I think Carmella is the only Miss Money in the Bank to not cash in the same night, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well, she held on to it for a while, so
Yeah.
I
And then the
can't
ref held on
honestly tell
for it
you.
for a while when
Yeah.
she was trying to cash it in.
And then we had the classic scream of her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when people cash in Money in the Bank and the ref acts like they don't know what's going on, just drives me nuts.
Oh, what is in the briefcase? Why is she handing me?
Yeah. Are you
I can't
what am I
read.
doing with this? Are you sure you want to do this? Like, yeah, I'm fucking sure. Either ring the bell or you're getting hit next.
You're getting finished next, sir. Not
Yeah.
in the good way either. Take that how you want.
Yeah. Full sex.
Definitely not.
Round 3, the LWO with Carlito got drafted to Raw from SmackDown, which in hindsight, I think it was good to get them away from the LDF, or these two teams were going to be relegated to just exclusively dealing with each other.
Yeah.
So that meant that Rey Mysterio, Joaquin Wilde, Cruz del Toro, Dragon Lee, and Zelina Vega, as well as Carlito, all went to Raw in one fell swoop. Disagree with moving Carlito with them. He should have went to being a solo draft pick, just like Giovanni Vinci was. But there are no rules here. We do what we want. Immediately
The
after,
gloves are off.
the gloves were never on. Immediately after LWO, Legado del Fantasma gets drafted to stay on SmackDown. That being Santos Escobar, Berto, Angel, whatever it is that they call him, and Elektra Lopez. Drew McIntyre finally gets drafted and remains on Raw. Absolute travesty that he dropped to the third round. And Shinsuke
And
Nakamura.
on night 2.
What's that?
I said, and on night 2. So really, he's not even a third round.
Well,
Sixth,
he wasn't.
7th round.
He wasn't eligible for night 1. See, that's the thing. Only certain people were eligible for each night. So that's why the draft order, that's why Imperium is still a first overall pick, because they weren't eligible night 1.
Makes
so
sense
technically, Drew was the 11th overall pick when he was eligible.
Yeah.
But then rounding out the group was Shinsuke Nakamura being drafted to SmackDown from Raw. I like Shinsuke. They don't seem to care about having him do anything. So to draft Shinsuke Nakamura in the same round as Drew McIntyre just proves that they had no clue what they really wanted to do with all this.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
They don't know what to do with their draft.
I guess you could say this was a rough draft. Oh, thank you.
Shut the up.
I'll take that silence as it was good and
Get the out.
you don't want to hear me bleep.
Out.
I can bleep myself, you bleep.
Kicking off the 4th round was the Judgment Day being drafted to remain on Raw, consisting of Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, and JD McDonough. They remain on Raw to stick with Damian Priest, who was World Heavyweight Champion, obviously. But Rhea Ripley was not drafted. Breaking the rules. Breaking the law. Breaking the law.
Breaking the law, breaking the law.
Naomi was also drafted in this round, followed by
dump truck.
God damn it. Followed by Ilya Dragunov, finally getting the call from NXT, and then Chelsea Green and Piper Niven drafted to SmackDown from Raw, and as we heard from Adam Pearce, his favorite draft pick of the entire draft wasn't even one that he made because Chelsea Green is out of his hair.
Yep.
Which works because now that he's got Kiana James in his office, he probably didn't need Chelsea Green blowing in there all the time.
I see what you did there.
Do you?
I do.
Okay. Round
you could
5.
say he's got somebody else in his hair.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, he don't have any hair, so probably not, but you know.
Well, you don't know that for sure.
I mean, he don't have any hair on his head.
Which one?
Ugh. I'll leave you to decide that.
Nah, I'm good. I'll just ask Kiana.
Ayo. Round 5, the New Day was drafted to remain on Raw, that being Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods. Obviously, Big E had already been previously separated from the New Day, then they were back together, and then he got dropped on his head and is still not back. I believe it's been like 2.5 years at this point.
Probably not coming back either.
He's already said that that he may never wrestle again. He said he's okay with that. Like he's made peace with the whole situation. He doesn't hold a grudge because mistakes happen. Obviously, he knows that Ridge Holland did not intentionally try to paralyze him. But it is a real shame that we lost Big E as an active competitor for a
It just
feud
sucks that they
went
won't even
nowhere.
make him. It sucks that they won't even make him a manager of the New Day.
Yeah.
Or something like
that. That has confused me for a while. Like now that he's able to like be up and moving around, like he's doing like the kickoff shows on the kickoff show panel. He's doing stuff with the guys on Up Up Down Down. So like I don't know why they wouldn't bring him in as a manager. If anything, like the only reason I can think of is that maybe they don't want to do that because of the fact that sometimes the managers get involved, like physically, and obviously he can't do that. But I don't know. I would love to see Big E return to television, even like you said, as a manager role. I think he'd make a great replacement for Booker T down in NXT. Just because, God, do I hate
No, let me tell
Booker.
you something, all right?
God, do I hate listening to Booker on commentary.
Oh!
Oh, yeah, man.
It's sexy red! Oh, yeah!
Jesus Christ, shut up. I still haven't watched the episode, and I am dreading it. I don't even have to take notes on
it, and I'm like, shut up.
Yeah, I don't even have to take notes on it, and I am dreading watching it. Typically, I only dread having to watch Raw for the fact of having to take notes. Just because it takes so long. But, Pretty Deadly got picked following the New Day, that being Kit Wilson and Elton Prince. And then the shock factor pick of the round was NXT's Lyra Valkyria being called up to the main roster, who would then almost become the Queen of the Ring. So I'd say it's worked out quite well for her.
I would say so.
Yeah. And then the final pick of the 5th round saw Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell get drafted from SmackDown over to Raw. Or, my bad, from Raw over to SmackDown.
I was going to say it wrong way.
Yep. The 6th round saw the Final Testament get drafted to Raw from SmackDown. And then they immediately appeared on SmackDown on the Tuesday following. They got drafted on Monday and they appeared on NXT for, I believe it was a tag title match on Tuesday. And why? Why are we sending main roster? Like, if you're going to keep them on the main roster, put them on the main roster. If you're going to put them in NXT, put them in NXT. Stop having them do both. You're taking the time away from other people in NXT that could be having time on the air. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I mean, I'd rather have them in NXT anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they could go down to NXT, just run roughshod. Karrion Kross become NXT champion again. AOP become tag team champions. They'll do just fine down in NXT.
I don't have to hear about them.
Yeah, because you don't watch NXT.
I don't even watch their matches. I see them come on, I'm like, all right, what do we have?
You just wait for me to tell you what happened and then agree along like, yep, I definitely watched that.
Yep, I remember that move specifically.
Yeah. What's the name of their new finisher?
Bookends, I don't know.
I mean, that was Booker T's version of the rock bottom.
Is it the roll-up?
The surprise roll-up?
Yeah.
No, their new finisher is named What a Rush. Because clearly Paul Ellering can't get past the fact that he was the manager for the Road Warriors /
I was
the
gonna
Legion
say,
of Doom.
okay, Road Warriors.
Yeah.
We're going down that way.
With the 22nd pick in the 6th round, SmackDown selected Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. Hashtag DIY. I don't know why they still put the hashtag in there. Just get rid of it.
Yeah, we're not playboys here. Or pretty boys.
Bronson Reed got drafted to remain on Raw. And then the shock value pick for round 6 was Blair Davenport getting picked to call up from NXT. Again, it's a pick that made sense. She was already somewhat of an established competitor, having been with AEW. And that concluded the picks that happened on Raw, but there were still some social media picks. Raw held on to Natalya, Apollo Crews. Wait, I thought...
Apollo Crews is SmackDown.
Yeah, to SmackDown from Raw, but I thought we said him already.
Nope.
No? Okay. Oh, I did, but in my predictions, that's where I said him already. But so Apollo Crews got drafted to SmackDown from Raw. Then Kaden Carter and Katana Chance got drafted to remain on Raw. Giovanni Vinci got drafted to SmackDown from Raw, where he'll probably end up just remaining until he gets released.
Here come the squash matches.
I mean, they could bring back his model character that he played down in NXT after getting kicked out of Imperium in NXT. But, this is technically Imperium 2.0. Imperium has imploded once already. And then He Who Shall Not Be Named always treated anybody who came from NXT as like a reset. Like, that didn't help things. That when, like, it was hard enough for people to establish themselves, but then when they have storylines play out in NXT and come up to the main roster and you just act like those storylines never happened.
Bro, he would have called up Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes after they just had their and had them teaming again.
I can do you
Straight
one
up.
better. He had DIY tag teaming on the main roster while they were actively feuding in NXT.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So he absolutely would have put them back as a team. Because they're, well, he would
He's
have
like, I
never
don't watch my own product.
he would have
talking about?
never seen Carmelo Hayes as a high draft pick, which fair, but nevertheless,
Still a good talent.
yeah. Pick number 29 within the social media picks, Odyssey Jones, drafted to Raw once again. He got drafted to Raw last year, and I don't know that we saw him ever.
Nope.
This man has the best job in the world.
He's watched people get cut, and he's like, I don't have to do nothing. They just keep keeping me.
A story just broke the other day that said that the minimum annual salary for the main roster of WWE is $350,000. Odyssey Jones getting paid $350,000 to do nothing, just exist.
He probably sits back.
This man got himself. This man got himself a Kardashian light job. Like, he just gets to sit around and be paid to exist. I need one of these jobs.
Plot twist: he's one of the cameramen, and the opportunity presents itself, and he attacks Cody Rhodes.
Doubt. But, like, TKO. I know they're never going to hear this, but if you're looking to just donate $350,000 a year to someone to sit at home,
we have a show.
I am more than willing. I volunteer as tribute to get paid $350,000 a year to sit at home and not have to perform.
Just give us $350 for the show.
I won't even get upset about not getting pushed or any TV time. Like, you just pay me and I will stay the fuck away. You know what? I ain't even greedy. If you want to just pay me $100,000 to sit at home, that'd be cool too. Like, I ain't greedy.
What if he has something on TKO that they don't want to get out and they're forced to pay him because they don't want anything getting out? So, like, yeah, you can say how much money you want.
350,000? Cool. That's our new baseline, guys.
That's all we want.
Tegan Knox got drafted to SmackDown from Raw. Dijak, the artist formerly known as T-Bar, got drafted to Raw from NXT. Has yet to do anything. Why are we drafting people and then just forgetting about them?
Another one that's just kind of sitting around.
Yeah, I mean, Dijak has been very active in NXT, and when he got called up to Raw, I figured we would see him by now. We're a month in and haven't even heard about the fact that Dijak got drafted to Raw. They've not mentioned it on TV. It was only mentioned in a social media post that said that he got picked. Pick 32. Oh, I guess Raw just got extra picks because the last 3 picks are all Raw. 31 was Dijak. 32 is the Creeds with Ivy Nile staying on Raw. And then they did my boys so dirty. The New Catch Republic was the last pick of the draft. Going
Mr. Irrelevant.
Mr. and Mr. Irrelevant. There's 2 of them. But, yeah, the New Catch Republic got drafted to Raw from SmackDown. Imagine picking the Final Testament over New Catch Republic or the Creeds.
Or anyone in general.
God, imagine thinking that the Final Testament is good for the main roster.
Dude, we would have had such a heyday had Odyssey been picked above New Testament.
Dude, imagine Odyssey Jones being picked in the first round. First overall pick, not
Oh my
Bianca Belair,
God.
not Imperium. It's your boy, Odyssey motherfucking Jones.
They're like, hold on, let me throw you for a curveball because I know that New Testament's in there. We're gonna take Odyssey in the first round of the first pick.
Yeah. Like, just Odyssey Jones back from his Space Odyssey.
I said yeah, and then guess what? For our second pick, we're gonna take Dijak, second overall.
We're gonna draft T-Bar. Now that I guess that's all the draft picks, but just kind of a quick look back 1 month later. A lot of the picks made sense because obviously you got to keep storylines going, and you're not going to move everybody. Like, you're not just going to say, okay, I'm going to go up there and draft everybody from your roster. You're going to go up there and draft everyone from my roster.
We're just changing brands.
Yeah, we're just trading everybody. You know what? We're going to make it Monday Night SmackDown and Friday Night Raw. Everything changes.
Nobody knows what the hell's going on.
Yeah, everything changes, but really nothing's changed.
It's a new era.
The Logan Paul Levesque era.
He's the number one guy.
But I just feel the draft, if you're going to keep doing it, first off, don't do it on the same night and try to compete with the NFL draft. Like, that was just dumb. Running it in competition at the same time as the NFL draft was shooting yourself in the foot.
Guys, our draft means more, I promise.
If you want to ride the NFL draft high, do it like the next week or the week before when everybody's in the anticipation of a draft.
Bro, they could have did it on Monday after the draft was done on Saturday.
That too.
And people would have been like,
they could have done
hell
it.
yeah.
Yeah, they could have done it the Raw and SmackDown after the NFL draft instead of making the SmackDown portion compete with the actual NFL draft. But yeah, if they want to do it in the future, they got a lot of things they got to fix. For obviously, as I said, don't do it at the same time as the NFL draft. You got to flush out your actual rules a bit more. Just establish who is actually going to be able to be drafted. Are injured stars able to be picked?
Let's get some
not?
guidelines up in this beach.
Yeah. Like, inform us of how this works. Don't just start doing stuff that makes no sense. That concludes this kind of draft recap 1 month later video, whatever you want to call it. Once again, I have been Dylan Graves. He's been John Sutton. This has been WrestleRecap. And if you want to support WrestleRecap, you can like, share, and subscribe. You can comment down below and let us know how we're doing. I want to thank you for watching the video. But until next time, goodbye. that concludes this kind of draft recap 1 month later video, whatever you want to call it. Once again, I have been Dylan Graives. He's been John Sutton. This has been WrestleRecap. And if you want to support WrestleRecap, you can like, share, and subscribe. You can comment down below and let us know how we're doing. I want to thank you for watching the video. But until next time, goodbye.